Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. This is Pigman Gamer X coming to you from the internet. The Forget the intro. It's a random intro, not really meant to be the one that I'm focusing on. Kind of just thought up of it, really. But anyway, I am planning on starting a movie review series, and I figured that what better way to start it than to start with a science fiction drama that is hugely underrated. I think it's an amazing film. It's one of my favorites. The director's cut is of that film is well one of my favorite films of all time. Really, it's an amazing film to watch with actors who very often would not be doing these kinds of films. Such actors as well, sorry, it's just actors like Ashton Kutcher and Amy Smart. Now, Amy Smart, she has not really done many films, or to my knowledge, she has not done many films. Um, she did Crank and Crank 2 High Voltage alongside Jason Statham. Two very fun films, utterly stupid films, but fun to watch every once a year or something. But Ashton Kutcher, again, not to me. He's just not really the kind of actor that I would go for. But this film shows that he can actually act. Thing is that he's been typecast as the typical straight teen or boyfriend. Yeah, teen boyfriend, you could say, sort of. He does a lot of romance films. There's one, I don't know, I think it was called Valentine's Day. I'm not too sure. I think there's one film called Valentine's Day, where that he did, and it's a hugely underrated film, I believe, and not the Valentine's Day, the film that I'm about to review, which is The Butterfly Effect. It's a film. No, I will not be able to show anything on in my video, anything visual. You might have nothing, or you might actually have quite likely just a bland background. Really, This is just really a review that I'm not really going to put much effort on. I've watched the director's cut, and I've just been killing to really just put this out on the internet. It's an amazing film, and I'll explain to you why. I will roughly describe both versions of the film as well as I can, and I will compare them. I will start off with the theatrical version. Now, the Butterfly Effect was released in 2004, and even by the best and most popular movie review channels, it's sort of gone undetected. Um, Not much attention was paid to it, and frankly, really nobody knows. Not many people know about the existence of that film. Um, Again, quite likely because it had these, I wouldn't say B-list actors, just actors that are not often reliable in many ways. Anyway, I will start off with roughly what the story is going to be. Now, spoilers, if you have not seen the film, watch both versions of the film and then watch my or listen to my review. You could probably get the Butterfly Effect on Netflix, the theatrical version. I'm not too sure, it depends what country you're in, but anyway, the theatrical version is about a kid called Evan Treborn, and as you start off the film, you're instantly told that he has daddy issues. Basically, his dad was Um, you aren't told much about the dad, but instantly you're told that the dad is not around, and he can't be around for some reason. You don't know why. You don't hear anything from the dad. You only have the mother tell you that. Tell Evan when he's so desperate to have a dad. She tells him that the dad cannot be around. And that instantly shows that he's a character who's quite likely he's missing a role model really in his life. And he has his own family issues. The first scene shows the mother fixing the school, her car really, that she uses to take him to school eventually, and that shows that the mother is again a woman who's living on her own and having to raise a child on her own. So instantly you're brought in from that scene alone with the two things happening. Her explaining, her talking to Evan about the dad, and her fixing the car shows that Evan does not have a normal childhood in some ways. It's not a normal childhood now. And then, not too long after that, you're introduced to it shows you the first scene in which Evan does something which he can't recall. Now the story basically here is which does something. Well, Evan does something which he can't recall ever doing it. He does this horrible drawing of some dead people. Nobody knows who they are. Nobody knows why. But instantly, you are shown that. Sorry, sister. You are shown that Evan clearly doesn't remember this, and so the mother decides to have Evan sort of write journals about what he does every day. And through those journals, we'll be able to sort of narrow down what moments he can't remember, because he will describe. He will notice. Well, they were. He would put them in the journal really. He wouldn't put it in the journal what he can't remember, but he would put the journal roughly the moment before and right after. Basically, he started having blackouts, and instantly after the first blackout, we are introduced to. I think the film fast forwards to Evans. No, it doesn't. No, it doesn't actually fast forward. No, sorry. It. Sorry, because I'm trying to think really what order it was again. Oh yes, it skips to Evan visiting a friend who's a girl, and clearly they're very close. As in the scene in which he does the horrible drawing, you can see her in the background, in the nursery or primary school, wherever the hell he doesn't really explain whether he was in a nursery. Quite likely in a nursery though. But then you're instantly shown that Evan is at her house, and they're celebrating her birthday. I think, not too sure what it was. I don't think it was her birthday, but it was just clearly something special because they're all dressed up in, you could say, just I guess clothing, princess kind of fantasy clothing, I guess you could say. She's dressed as a Victoria, as an old princess, uh, and there's like her brother is dressed as a villager, I think, if I can remember well. And then the father comes out and he talks about recording a film, doing like a sort of play, and he convinces them or talks them into doing it into filming it in the basement because it looks more like a dungeon. Um, and then Evan has another one of those blackouts, and it skips to Evan sort of like being half naked, I guess you could say. This is where the film starts getting weird. It starts getting weird when Evan, like a 10-year-old, is half naked. Beside, like, he's the only one who's naked in that scene. You don't get to see it really. He's like carrying his clothes high up so that it doesn't really show the nudity or anything like that, which is great. And if you have half a brain cell, you know what the father was planning. Pedophilia, basically. And the film then skips. It does a lot of skipping, really, because well, it skips to then. Well, it doesn't skip right after that. It has like a small dialogue scene in which the father tells the little girl. The little girl is called Kaylee, by the way, in case you didn't know. The little girl is called Kaylee, and the father tells Kaylee's brother to close the door and tells him to close the door. Sort of lightly threatens him, I guess, and tries to convince the daughter to, again, his own daughter, to get naked. So he's clearly gonna do an adult film with children in it. And then it skips to years later when they're already like young teenagers, I guess you could say. And they're all in the same basement, listening to rock, smoking, and having your typical fun, you know. And then, but it's the full group. There's another person called Lenny, and that is instantly in the film what is established as the social group that Evan is in. They go to like do this firecracker prank, I guess, on a lady's mailbox, and then instantly, when the thing's about to blow up, again it blacks out. It skips. Evan blacks out and sort of like wakes up again, or I guess, what do you call it when you get out of blackout? I'm just gonna say wakes up, even though he doesn't actually. I'm not too sure what you would call it when you get out of a blackout, but he blacked out for a while, and then he regains consciousness or wakes up again, and his friends are carrying him through the woods, almost in a hurry, as if something horrible happened, and then instantly the film skips to Evan and his group outside the house, which they put the firecracker nearby, and there's an ambulance outside. you're not giving any context as to really what happened. Uh, Evan isn't told what really happened because he blacked out about it. And then the mother at this point decides to bring him to the psychiatrist again. Psychiatrist the psychiatrist has to um, help him. You know, just just help him get over the things. Anyway, there's a little bit of beef between a few problems between Evan and you could say the Kaylee's brother after that, because Kaylee's brother Evan has basically a crush on Kaylee, and he admits that in a later on scene when they're at the cinema, and Kaylee's brother is not happy with that. Then the whole film skips to many years later where Evans moved out. He's like 21, you could say, or 17. Was he 21 or 17 years old? But he was probably 27, possibly. He's an adult already, practically a young adult. He's doing college and he's doing amazingly, very intelligent person, and he's studying psychology. And whoop-de-doo, what a coincidence! He's studying memory loss. And then it's later on, he finally finds the journals again, and he's reading it to somebody somebody finds his journals and asks him to read one of them just for fun, because he almost forgot about it, and they don't know anything about really what happened in the journals or what happened in his past. So he reads them, and instantly the scene switches back to the moment that he's describing in that journal. But not just as the scene switched to it, but it sort of Evan himself, his consciousness like flies. You could say it's like he travels back to that moment, but in his younger self. So it's really just his consciousness that travels back in time, and he finally remembers. He remembers what happened in one of the moments. In this moment, is his dog gets killed. Blah blah blah. That's his dog gets killed. That's what happens, really. And he's curious about this. He's not too sure about why this is happening. Wait, no, sorry. This is not a dog murder moment. This was the moment in the basement, which is where he had a second blackout, if I'm to be correct. Yes, no, the first time he traveled back in time using the journals, he has he travels back to the moment where he's basically about to be in a porno film. And then he wakes as that moment finishes, he wakes up and he's in total disbelief of what happened, but still he's curious, I guess. Well, he's not in disbelief, he's just surprised, and again, life-changing event. And so then, after that, he decides to find Kaylee, which was he was very close with when he was a child, and who was the other victim in the in the film, in the porno film that was in the film. And so he decides, um, to travel back to find her. Really, he finds her after a long time, and this is a scene which, or a part of the film, a short part of the film, which established really what tone this film was going to have. Because instantly after Evan meets her for the first time, he has like a short, pleasant conversation about basically how their lives have changed. She says that she was emancipated. She emancipated herself, which is basically she where she by law, you could say, files a report on the dad, or it's not exactly like that. It's basically she got the law and she involved the law in her dad's problems, and she managed to get herself removed from his guardianship. Basically, she no longer became his daughter legally. And so, she explains how she moved out with the brother as well to continue having a great family. And then just after that pleasant conversation between them, talking about how their lives have changed and what they've done, it seemed Evan just instantly lays the whole porno film conversation on her, asking her about why did it happen, or what happened, did they do it, or what did the father do after that, all that kind of stuff. And the scene just takes a huge emotional turn, really, on Amy Smart's behalf. She just, all of a sudden, she does this emotional, not over the top, just very, very leveled performance of a troubled actress who clearly does not want, a troubled person, sorry, who clearly does not want to remember those horrible moments. And she basically just tells Evan to leave her alone, and that she doesn't want to be reminded of these kinds of things, and that she doesn't want to see him. Sort of just acts like, well, she doesn't say it, but she sort of just, the way she talks to him after that, the things she says, the way she's like emotionally crying, just shows that she does not want to see him anymore, because after such a long time of seeing each other, he suddenly just decided to have a horrible conversation, and she's traumatized, almost feels betrayed by the fact that after so many years of not seeing each other, that this is the conversation that he wants to have when they see each other after such a long time. I probably just repeated that fact like 4 times there, but okay, I'm nervous. This is the first time that I've done a movie review, so I get a bit nervous. But anyway, this scene then leads to her suicide, which gets Owen to travel back in time and to the pedophile video, and he like threatens the father with basically saying that there's one out of 2 things that will happen, but you could do this, which will turn your daughter into a emotionally destroyed person, and then you could do this, or you could do this, which will treat your daughter like an amazing queen. and she gets the father to somehow punish the little brother. Not too much context on what the little brother, why that, on why he wanted the little brother to be punished, except for the fact that the little brother clearly had something against Evan when he found out that they were in love. Again, this was when they were like teenagers, and they're not teenagers yet, so yeah, the film goes back and forth a lot. It's a time travel film, okay? I'll have to be going back and forth very carefully. Um, so yes, Kaylee's brother's a bit of a psycho in the film. Really, he's crazy. He has when people like piss him off, he has these very very unusual ways of getting his revenge. And so anyway, Evan acknowledges that and convinces the father to punish Kaylee's brother instead. I don't know what Kaylee's brother name was. I can't don't actually care enough to even remember, but don't care about his character really. It's an important character, but I'm not gonna look it up right now. I'm not gonna look it up, so just refer to him as Kaylee's brother. Um, should I call him Psycho Brother? No, that's Kaylee's brother. Anyway, and then it fast forwards to when Evan is in college, except well, this is an alternate version, parallel, sorry, parallel version of his college years. And this, he wakes up in Kaylee's bedroom and he finds he finds himself in a very big bed. It's the way it's decorated. It's kind of like the bedroom was decorated like those generic um, college chick flicks, if you know what I mean. If you lived, I've never lived through the 90s, but I've seen plenty of films, and I for a fact know that if you lived through the 90s and saw a teen college romance film, the bedrooms of the teens will just be a whole load of celebrities, or well, not celebrities. You get my gist. It very girly room, very Christ. I'm sort of getting off point here anyway. He wakes up and he has a totally different life in his original college life. He was the genius. He was the intelligent person. Didn't have a girlfriend. Shared a room with another man who did have a girlfriend, and they did have sex in the same room, even when Evan was in there. So he was not particularly privacy was not his thing, I guess. He didn't have the greatest privacy. But in this version, we clearly see that he has his own room, or well, shared room, but with his girlfriend, which he didn't have in the previous version. And then there's like a part where he asks where his clothes is, because he's used to wearing the typical well-mannered kind of clothing the clothing that a well-mannered person would usually wear, that not a douchebag, basically showing he's not a douchebag. But then instantly in that scene, when Kaylee points out his clothes to him, he realizes that he's a frat boy. He's a frat boy, basically. He's wearing all these sort of bright kind of, I don't know, gangster clothing. No, I wouldn't say gangster clothing. No, definitely not use gangster clothing, but sort of just very childlike clothing, I guess you could say. He wore like these um, baggy baggy jeans. I think it was. He wore these jeans, a bright yellow sports jacket, a red cap or something. You get what I'm trying this to show. Kind of um almost kind of like a spoiled child would choose to wear. So and then there's just like instantly we're shown that he's the total opposite of what he wanted to be in college. Then he has his own college social group, which he hangs out basically with the bullies. Blah blah blah. They cheat on their exams. He ends up being recognized as a bully as well because of that. Uh, what happens after that as well? This film is not very good when keeping track on how the narrative works. You have to be really good at remembering it. Mm, crap. I'm trying to remember what blackout happened after this. Oh wait, no, sorry, this is what happened. Yes, um, he ends up killing his. Well, it's like a scene where his car gets wrecked. He doesn't see how it gets wrecked or anything. He just walks out with Kaylee and realizes that his car was hugely busted. Badly busted? Yeah, badly busted. And then inside the car, he finds a dog chain, which he instantly recognizes was the same dog chain that his dog wore. And from that, he realizes that it's Kaylee's brother, because Kaylee's brother was the one who killed the dog. Kaylee's brother was the one who killed the dog in an attempt to get revenge on the fact that him, that Evan and Kaylee are in love. So, well, not in love, but Evan loved Kaylee. Instantly, he realizes that it's Kaylee's brother, and so he decides to. Well, although Kaylee's trying to um, ask him why he's acting so weird about this and why he was not acting like his normal self. P.S. By normal self, she means the frat boy that she knew, because this version of his life is different. And so she's noticing that he's not the same person because time travel again. But anyway, he then decides to sort of like prepare himself, I guess. The brother catches up with him, attacks him with a baseball bat. Yeah, and then Evan gets a hold of the baseball bat and smashes the brother's skull in, ends up in jail. And in jail, there's a very intense scene where he's like trying to read his journals, but he has to read them very fast because there are criminals are going after him. Because the journals were stolen from him upon entering the prison, and he was beaten up and they were stolen from him, and he got them, and to get them back he had to kill the criminals who took them from him. So there's a scene where he's like in a prison cell and he's quickly reading the journals to try and travel back in time to the moment. Yes, to the moment uh, where the firecracker scene happened. And so in that scene, we are shown that what really happened was the the reason that they were running so that originally they were running through the woods trying to get out of there is because a lady was walking up to where the firecracker was hidden, which was in a mailbox. She was walking up to there and she was carrying a baby. And they were about to open the mailbox only to have the firecracker blown in their face. And obviously the baby would die, and quite likely the lady would have traumatizing consequences. And so when Evan realizes this, he runs towards the lady and sort of like not pushes her, but just runs towards the firecracker and like waves her away from the firecracker, and it explodes in his face instead of it killing the baby. And then you in the film instantly skips to when he's in college again, and this time he's losing both limbs, he's losing his limbs. Then um his who the person who was his girlfriend, Kaylee again, um is going out with Lenny, another one of his close friends, and instead um Kaylee's brother is extremely religious. He's a Christian, I think. I'm not too sure, but he helps with funding. He's apparently helping raising awareness for church groups and stuff like that. And as he in this part of the story, that's what he tells Evan. And Evan is surprised again, and then Evan has like a meaningful conversation with Kaylee about what happened in the past few years, and he asks her, because she's not going out with him, he asks her if she loves him, and she says that it's like this conversation just shows that she does love him in some sort of way. Like it's a really close friend that she would never give up. And then again, Evan travels back to the moment. Well, he doesn't travel back yet. He tries to kill himself because he's unhappy at the fact that he made such a choice like this. And Christ, what was I'm losing track of exactly what happens in the film because there are just so many turning points for the film itself. Christ, there was an important scene in which he's paralyzed and he travels back in time. This is when he's like crippled. He reads one of the journals, travels back in time. What did he do again? What exactly did he do? This is where the film really tries to test you to test your memory in many things. At one point in the film, he does travel back in time again, and I can't remember the film in chronological order. I can't. It's very difficult. You have to watch a film to actually understand it. But at one point in the film, he travels back in time, and oh wait, no, yeah, no, sorry. After the prison sequence, he travels back in time, and he hands Lenny a shard of metal, a piece of metal that's very sharp, because he travels back in time to the moment where his dog is about to get killed, and the idea was basically that Lenny would cut open the sack so he can let the dog free. But instantly, Lenny decides to kill um, Kaylee's brother, who's the one who was going to set the dog on fire. Um, Obviously, this is because, again, later on we are told that the reason that this happened is because, again, Kaylee's brother was one of the biggest influences in the firecracker incident. Um, so he decides to kill Kaylee's brother, and then this is when Evan decides to go back in time and try and save, try and stop the firecracker from killing anybody. Then he's like depressed, and he travels back in time. And what choice was it that he made again when he traveled back in time? What moment specifically was it that he traveled back in time to? Because he does something. He does what? He does what? What does he do? Excuse me, ladies and gentlemen. I'm gonna go ahead and I will wait a sec. Sorry, I'll have to stop the recording for a while because I'm. You know what? I'm not actually gonna stop the recording. Not now. Just hold. Bear with me here. Okay. Sorry, ladies and gentlemen, just yeah. It was after the prison sequence. He goes back in time and gives the blah 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 the shard and yeah. Sorry, I was just trying to see. Sorry. After the prison sequence, as I said, he gives his best friend a metal piece which he uses to kill Kaylee's brother. Um, I was just watching the film for a second to try and remember what happened. And then well, basically, Evan tries to see how Kaylee visits Kaylee. Kaylee's father finds out where Kaylee lives, and realizes that Kaylee's actually become a prostitute because she's so traumatized by the death of her brother that she decides to come. she decides to hit hard on drugs and stuff like that. And instantly after that, that's when he then goes back in time to try and stop the firecracker incident. Then after the firecracker incident, he travels back in time to try and stop the father from making any mistakes again. He figures that that's the best choice in this case scenario. He really wants to scare if he really wants to scare the father to the fullest. So he goes back in time and he goes back in time to the moment where when the film was the adult film was in the basement, and he gets a firecracker from the basement and tries to threaten the father with it. He lights the firecracker to try and scare him, and then the father like basically pushes him to try and get the firecracker off him, but because he was being pushed, he accidentally lets go of the firecracker and it rolls close to Kaylee. And Kaylee is a child, so she doesn't know what a firecracker is, so she picks it up and boom, it blows up, kills Kaylee. And then the film skips to many years in the future when he's a teenager and he's in a mental institution because of the death of the young girl. Now, because he killed her at such a young age, this meant that he didn't have any of the journals because he made such a big change in his own timeline. He did not have any of the journals. What he did have was like a home. He eventually finds. He escapes like from his room and he finds these home videos of when he first met Kaylee. And he uses that as a kind of time portal to travel back in time to the moment he first met Kaylee, and he decides to say some horrible things to her in that moment to try and, because from the story he is told that because he knows that Kaylee was having parent problems, and in that moment that was the last time he was, or that was one of the last moments that he was going to be that she was going to be with her mother. So he says some real horrible things to her, and and basically saying that if he ever sees her again, she's going to get killed and stuff. And she's a child, so she gets scared. She sides with the mother, and ultimately grows to really love the mother. And so decides to move in with the mother. So this is the theatrical version. Kaylee decides to move in with the mother, and so Evan and Kaylee live their separate lives and totally forget about each other. And well, that's the theatrical version. The director's cut, I won't go into too much depth with that one, because again, director's cut only really had a few tiny scenes, I guess, but were very vital to the film's tone. Also, the ending was a lot different. I feel the ending for the director's cut it's understandable why they cut it, but again, it's a lot better than the ending that we were ultimately given. In this ending, instead of traveling to a moment in which he first met Kaylee, he travels back to when he was born, and decides seconds before he was born, and he decides to use the umbilical cord to strangle himself. Why is this scene explained? Because now this scene is later on, is way before this scene happens. In the theatrical version, there's a scene in which when he's like the dorky guy in college, there's like a romantic night that he sort of has with his mother. It's not romantic, it's just like a nice dinner. It's like a nice dinner out. and that shows really that the scene was put there to show that he clearly doesn't have another girl to share his time with, um, or another girl that he's properly interested in. So he brings his mother. In the theatrical version, it's just a dinner and the mother explaining to him roughly how crazy the dad was, and then it just skips to his normal college life. But in the director's cut, it goes to a scene in which they're sort of um, they're outside and they want to do something else, and so they, for fun, they decide to visit a spiritualist. I think that's what you call them. You know, the people that sit on that's those spirit people who believe like in spirits and stuff like that, and they have like the glass ball in the middle. They claim that they can like read your future or talk about or talk to the undead and stuff. And so this is a very important scene because when he asks to be told about his future, the lady, the spiritualist, the, yeah, the spiritualist says that he was not meant to be born, and because he has no soul. And he keeps on asking, is that true? They initially they laugh it off, but then this woman is clearly, the spiritualist is very convinced that that's true, and the mother sort of like lashes out at the woman, kind of, and then she runs out of the place, sort of like crying, and then it is explained that the mother has had 3 stillborn babies before Evan. And this scene makes sense again because if you put it alongside the ending to the director's cut, it shows that the ultimate solution towards the best solution that Evan could have had was to never be born. That was the solution all along in the film, which is a difficult solution. The film is just a thrill ride. The ending towards the director's cut is a lot more emotional because not just does the baby die, but also it shows you the baby strangling himself with the umbilical cord, and it just has so much emotion to it. The film. It's a film that I really think you should watch, despite the fact that I very terribly reviewed it. I give it a 10 out of 10. It's just a film that is really interesting, underrated. Not many people really like to review this film because it's not very well known. It's a great film. I highly recommend that you people review it. I'm sorry for like if this was rushed, even though it was almost like an hour. And I'm sorry if the video is terribly edited. I frankly don't want to put much effort into this except for what I'm saying right now into the microphone, which I think is what matters the most. So, peace out, folks.